to the Western Ultimate League Open Side, a series of roundtable discussions featuring players and coaches from across the WUL. I'm your host, Megan Tormey, and my guests today, Amy Lee from the Los Angeles Astra, Claire McKeever from the San Francisco Falcons, and Charlie Eide from the Seattle Tempest. And these ladies are here to chat with me about X factors in their development as an ultimate player. So the difference makers, the things that helped them grow and accelerate their performance in the sport of ultimate. Now, it's worth noting that everyone here started playing ultimate in college, but played a considerable amount of sports leading up to their college ultimate career. So they came to the sport with a considerable amount of athleticism, but delving into the sport, getting the technicals of the sport of ultimate, that's what we're looking at, where these difference makers came in. So Amy, I want to start with you. You began playing ultimate your first year at the University of Southern California, and you give a lot of credit to your coaches because they exposed you to a lot of the opportunities that were available in this sport. So I want you to talk a little bit more about your experience playing at USC and how the coaches helped open your eyes to ultimate on different levels and how that helped your development as a player.
Yeah, Megan. I have to give a huge shout out and thanks to my coaches at USC. Samantha Zeig, Dan Ottinger, and Katie Killebrew. And Katie now is a teammate on Astra. I think not many college players had the luxury of having coaches, and I was fortunate to have very dedicated and caring coaches when I was in college, and their expertise really accelerated my development. Starting as a rookie, I was like a terrible thrower, and for multiple practice, I had one-on-one throwing sessions with one of our coaches on the sideline. And not only were they dedicated to our college program, they were a huge part of the LA Ultimate community. Within my first year, I played in local leagues in the summer through the encouragement of my coaches. And that same first summer, I went to club tryouts, knowing full well that I won't make it on the team as a first-year player, but tryouts are typically very intimidating, but having Sam and Katie be in leadership positions in the LA Women's Club team really made a great experience for me. And by the second year, I was a practice player. Just continuing on, I could go on and on. The next following year, they really pushed me to play in other states. I got a summer internship in Seattle, so they helped me get in contact with the Seattle's local team. So I had the chance to play with the Seattle Underground, the women's club team there. And it just continued being able to play as much as I can with their help. And yeah, just now post-college, I try to follow their footstep and be an active member of the LA community. I still play local leagues, organize mini. I've captained club teams. I've created new club teams. I've coached at USC as well. And now, culmination of that has now me becoming a professional player representing Los Angeles.
Yeah, you mentioned that you went from just being a sponge to your coach's tutelage to becoming an active leader in your community. And I'm curious if that growth and quick turnover from learning to also aiding others in learning had any development in your player, in your sport.
Yeah, definitely. As you just said, I just took and absorbed everything that they offered from being, whether it be the mental game or things on the field. And I try to follow their example. And now as you said, I've become a captain in the club team, created new club teams in the LA community, and just, ultimate is a team sport. So it allowed me to kind of learn how to work with other players and be a leader on the field.
You also started using CrossFit as a method to train for ultimate. I'm curious to know when you found CrossFit and how you think that training program changed you as an athlete.
Yeah, so with COVID last year, playing team sports ultimate, became not feasible. So I was fortunate to join a local CrossFit gym during that time, where they had an outdoor area where I could, safely work out. It's another really welcoming community that helped me stay in shape and become a stronger person, both physically and mentally. I could probably now deadlift and squat heavier than ever before. And I think in ultimate, it benefits to have a strong core and base. Whether it be boxing someone out as you're fighting for that in cut or jumping up, and collisions happen. And as a shorter player, I can get pushed around by taller athletes. It's just physics. And developing that stronger body will make me a better player on the field.
So, Claire, you came from a really rigorous athletic background as well. You did varsity track, cross country, swimming. So you were no stranger to hard work. Your college experience was interesting. You went to the Colorado College, and you described your program in the beginning as like a ragtag group of individuals, but you ultimately almost made it to nationals your junior year. And yet you still said that was not when you were taking ultimate most seriously. It wasn't until 2016, 2017 when you were trying out for Molly Brown. So I'm curious, with all of that experience, what was it during that time when you were trying to try out for Molly Brown that was the spark that made you want to commit to ultimate more fully? And what were some of the changes that you made in your training program that enabled you to reach that goal?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my college team, actually, we did make nationals my junior year, but I studied ecology, and I was on an ornithology field trip, so I was like birding in the desert when they played at regionals and qualified. So that's a good example of my relationship to ultimate for a long time, was that it was like something I loved to do, but it was always kind of deprioritized. So it definitely took me a long time to kind of I think even really appreciate how much fun it could be if you were really playing at the highest level and devoting yourself to it. So I feel like that was kind of the switch that flipped for me kind of later on. Is I'd played club casually for like most of my early 20s, and it was always in the background. It was a thing I did for fun, but it was definitely not my priority. I kind of bounced around teams and often picked up with teams for sectionals and regionals, but didn't play the rest of the season. But yeah, in that 2016 year, I don't even really remember what the lead up to it was. I'm sure I played in lots of leagues, and I'm sure some of my league teammates invited me to come to the women's combine, and I went out, and I think that was really the first time I had gotten to play with players who were really at the top of the game. It's a combine with all of the women who were there to try out, and getting to play with folks who were so good was really the first time, I think, where I realized I got to see play at that level and realized how much fun it could also be, and kind of saw like, oh, if you can get that good, you get to kind of level up to this level of play where it's really just it's a different game. And that was a real motivator for me to be like, oh, I think I want to see what I can do if I can double down and kind of put all my effort into this in a way that I haven't before. And I think as far as how I sort of approached that change and changed my training and went into that, I think, like I said before, it had always been kind of like just something that I did. I played seasons where I was also running marathons, and I spent a month one summer hiking across Colorado. And so I was doing all these other things that were really active, but I was not optimizing for ultimate at all. And that was that year that I went to the women's tryouts and then ended up playing with small batch. And that was the first season where I had even played a full season start to finish, from kind of tryouts all the way through regionals. And to do that, I started lifting consistently for the first time. And I think, Amy, to your point that you were saying, like, I'm also a small player, and I got a lot more muscular. I got a lot stronger. I had always done endurance sports, and making that switch to really focusing on like power and explosiveness, I got a lot faster and a lot quicker. And that made it so that I could play in a way that I hadn't been able to before. I'd always been fast, but it was kind of like getting that ability to hang with folks on defense and be able to kind of combine that stamina that I had with really that speed and quickness. I think went a long way in being able to keep up and learn really quickly. So definitely helped, and beyond that, honestly, just the consistency of, being showing up to practices a few times a week, and I had a pod that I ran drills with one morning every week. That was just a small group, but we were really committed, and so it was most weeks we were out there, and that was so many more touches than I'd ever gotten before, and just more time thinking about the game and being exposed to it and being around people who were thinking about how to get better. And I think that really just kind of that was a sweet spot for me as far as a learning curve goes to really accelerate that growth.
Once you made Molly Brown, you were obviously immersed in a program that was incredibly strong, which means during practices you get a lot of high reps of really quality matchups. You mentioned having to mark up against Claire Chastain quite frequently in practice, and that's no small feat. And then when you made Fury the following year, 2018 and 2019, you were a cutter who was responsible for guarding handlers. So obviously you had a lot of really tough matchups there. And I'm curious, this was just 2-3 years into you deciding that you wanted to be more competitive with Ultimate, and suddenly you were responsible for some really tough matchups. And I'm curious how you feel that pressure shaped you as an athlete and accelerated your growth in the sport.
Yeah, I think in some ways being in that situation and really being a new player on teams like that, it was a really great opportunity to kind of develop a learning mindset in a way that I think was really beneficial. I was so aware of all of the things I didn't know, and the fact that I was around players who had been playing at this elite level for longer than I'd been playing Ultimate. And so I was really, I think being in that state of being really aware of how much you don't know is actually a really good way to be on a super competitive team like that, because I never assumed that I knew how to do something, or that, I really had to break down my learning and was constantly in this really present state of being able to take advantage of those reps. And I think too, it really helped me get an appreciation for how I fit into a team strategy and a team defense. I was really aware of of my role on those teams, and when you have that much to learn, you can't learn everything, and so it was really helpful for me to have a very specific role like that. Like, you're going to be you're going to be matching up on these people, or you're going to be matching up on this type of player, and it really helped narrow my focus to be like, okay, I don't have to learn all of the things that I don't know all at once. I can get really good at this one thing, and in doing that, I'm playing my role and contributing to our team defense. And when you're talking about taking some of those big matchups, I think in some ways that also kind of helped set me up to be in that learning mindset, because I knew that I wasn't going to do anyone any good by going out and like trying to be a hero, matching up with Mad Dog. I knew that my role in that was like, go hang on, try to contain, try to make a player take more steps, or not have their first choice of throw, or have to make one more cut in order to get open. And that's really contributing to like our bigger picture strategy on the team. And having a really deep understanding of that, and knowing that I wasn't going to be the player out there making big plays, but that I could do a lot by doing my job. I think that helped in that process too. And like the last thing I'll say is, I think it really helped. I would not say that like resiliency was a strong point of mine, and it had to become one. I really had to take a look at how I approached those frustrating situations and feeling like, oh, I just played an entire game and I kind of felt like I didn't do anything, or that I didn't really make much of a difference. And I had to get a different perspective of being like, here are the small things that I'm focusing on. Did I do them? Then great. Next time I'm going to go and try something, try to add on, do a little bit more, and not be quite so focused on like, did I make a big play, or am I the player that I want to be? And I think that was really helpful too, in being able to just keep after it and get better kind of slowly over time.
So it's really interesting to listen to your mindset as you broke down the amount of work that you had to do to improve your game. And I'm curious, to what do you credit those analytical skills to say, this is what I need to learn at this practice, this is how I need to develop big picture, and then this is what I need to do in each individual practice to get there? Because that amount of growth that you're faced with in a short period of time can be overwhelming, but it sounds like you approached it very deliberately, and I'm curious how you did that.
Well, I work in data analytics, so it probably makes sense that I have a natural tendency toward analytic thinking and breaking down big problems into small pieces, and that is definitely kind of the way that my brain works. So I think part of that is just that's a mindset. And I would also say too, you mentioned earlier I grew up doing endurance sports. I spent high school doing cross country and track and swimming, and they're individual sports where you're part of a team, but really like your training's up to you, and it's a lot of long hours of doing kind of like boring things, and so and really having a sense of, what I do today is building on what I did yesterday, and it's part of this longer term plan. And I've always kind of loved that part of sport and seeing how you're building towards a goal that's down the road. And so I think being able to have that perspective, and having had that experience in past sports too. When I started swimming in high school, I hadn't swum competitively before that, but was able to, in the same kind of way, like get my foot in the door and then work really hard. So I had that confidence that this was something that I could do, and I could bring this mindset and just, like you said, kind of break them down into smaller pieces and be able to focus on one thing. And I think a big part of that for me too is I'm definitely a believer in like optimizing your strengths rather than trying to correct for your weaknesses, I guess. Like no one's ever going to be interviewing me about my throws. We'll just say that's not where my game really shines. And I knew that. I knew that I could not become a elite thrower right out of the gate, but I could focus on these parts of, identify the things I could do with the skill set that I had and just get as good as I could at those, so that I could even get into, like you said, kind of get onto these teams where all of a sudden you're able to have much higher quality reps, and then the rest of that growth comes a lot more quickly.
Charlie, you played softball for many years going into college and intended to play softball in college, but were ultimately dissatisfied with the program, and that's when you found Ultimate. And so I'm curious, how would you say that your relationship with softball, your dedication to it, and then that dissatisfaction shaped your early Ultimate experience in college?
Yeah, so I did grow up playing softball, and into college, my first year I played on the team there, and sort of ended up stumbling upon the Frisbee team and asking them more about it, because I had been introduced a little bit to Ultimate in high school by some friends, and they told me I should come out and welcomed me, and showed up super early the first time and thought I was in the wrong place. When they were like, hey, we have a tournament this weekend, you should come, I just felt like I belonged. They wanted me to be there, and that even though I was bad and I hadn't really played before, that I had opportunity to grow, and that there was this community of folks that were like, we need you, you're awesome, that's so great. And playing a really competitive sport growing up and into college, it was like a lot of the opposite sort of feelings, like fighting for a spot in the lineup, fighting for proving yourself, and maybe not ending up in the position that you want to, but, feeling like it's best for the team if I do that. So that's where I feel good. But on the Frisbee team, it was like, whatever you want, you're great, come back. And I just really felt that I had new things to learn, and it just kept me coming back the way that they really made me feel like they wanted me to be there.
And what was it like making that decision that you now wanted to focus on a brand new sport after having spent years and years being a softball player?
Yeah, I think the thought of not playing softball was really hard, and especially because it was one of the big deciding factors for like choosing to go to Humboldt where I went. And I had devoted so much time and energy, and not only my own, but of my like family members. But having something else that was also the things that I really enjoyed about playing softball growing up, you know, the teammates, the energy, like how it feels to connect on a play that was tough, just being goofy with your teammates, have that in a different place, and to even feel like there were even parts of that unexplored that I hadn't even discovered before. You know, all those things that I loved about sports, it was like still here. And the more that I learned about Ultimate, it was like, you can do it when you're an adult, and it's not really the Olympics, but there's worlds. And, you know, even as a kid growing up playing softball, the softball program was eliminated from the Olympics, and there's really not a future after college. And it just felt good, I guess, to have something that was filling those same buckets, while at the same time it was difficult to leave softball. And, you know, I still miss taking grounders and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Ultimate clearly became a very huge part of your life, and you decided that you wanted to move back to Seattle, close to family, but also to be close to really high-level Ultimate. What was that experience like, moving back to Seattle, trying out for Riot in a combine of some 200-300 individuals, and trying to make a name for yourself in a community that was full of great players and also just full of players? Like, how do you make a name for yourself in such a large group of people? And you know, what was that time in your life like with regards to Ultimate?
Yes. So I probably would have stayed down in Northern California as long as I could, but you know, my family was up here and there's more opportunities. And like you said, there's a lot of competitive Ultimate up here. So I was like itching to come up to the Seattle area. And it's funny that you mentioned, how did I make a name for myself? Because, you know, coming off of college, and we had like scraped together a nationals appearance my last year. You know, I thought I already had a name actually, and that everybody should know who I am. And so, you know, it was kind of interesting to then like go to the combine, kind of maybe similar to the event that Claire mentioned in Seattle. We used to have a big combine mixer type thing where all the teams are having their tryouts at once. And so, of course, like you said, the sea of amazing Ultimate players, no, I did not stand out at all, and nobody knew who I was. I stood out because I wore a skirt, actually, and I'm still convinced that that's why I was cut. But so I, yeah, it was a good time though, and I recognized how much it's awesome to just be surrounded by great Ultimate players. And I was sort of like, I think I recognized in the moment, like, oh, now I understand what it really means to be like surrounded by all of these Ultimate players, and in a community that's really deep, and also that like, no, you're not that important, Charlie, oh my God. And so I ended up just kind of travel playing that year, and was just like happy doing that and playing with my friends in Oregon, and didn't really think much about trying out the following year because, like I said, I was like, okay, you know where you are now around here. And but after playing in Winter League, one of my teammates from a team I had played on previously called Further was also on my Winter League team, Shannon McDowell, and she ended up being involved with Riot that year and really convinced me to come to the tryout again, and probably advocated for me to make it past the first round. And so I think it really was just thanks to friends I've made along the way, and like kind of like Amy said, you know, people encouraging me to keep going out and showing up, and also like a real shift in mindset and trying to like see those opportunities as also really resonating with everything all of you are saying. But like Claire was talking about, just good reps and Shannon was like, come on, Chidi, you know you like good reps, like come out. So actually, nobody even called me Chidi yet at that point, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it. But she just was like, come out and get the good reps. Like, these players are good and you're going to have a good time. And I just kind of took the whole process like that, as opposed to being like, oh, aren't you so happy that I'm here? And was really just more thankful for all the opportunities to just grind on the field with good players. And that probably helped me make the team really, that little mindset shift too.
Shirley, you are a personal trainer by profession, and I'm curious if through all of your learning you have discovered things that have made a difference in your game. What are things that you have integrated into your training program that you think are essential for ultimate players, and how have those changes helped you develop as an ultimate player?
Yeah, I've sort of always been really interested in fitness and stuff, and I think maybe coming from the other sports background where like when I was on the softball team in college, you know, we had to go and do our workouts in the gym. And so I think that I learned just fundamentally sort of that like fitness and strength and conditioning can help you perform on the field. And so when our sort of scrappy college team would always play much better on Saturday than on Sunday, we sort of started encouraging folks to like go into the gym and work out. And so that was kind of when I started just like bringing my teammates into the gym and showing folks how to do stuff. And really what honestly has like been a big difference maker for me, I think, has just been like the confidence to bring my friends in and show them that like the gym can be cool and fun, and there's something in here that will help you. I think that there's probably a lot of different movements in particular or regimens that I've followed that totally paid off in the time and place. And I don't know that any like one was better than the other at training me for ultimate, but I think that the biggest thing I learned was just that it's fun and empowering to like bring your teammates and your friends into the gym and to work out. And I'm just like really grateful for that skill and to be able to bring that to my team and my friends.
Knowing what you know about yourself as an athlete and how the people have made an impact, the training programs, the shift in mindsets has helped you develop as a player, I'm curious from all of you what you think the Western Ultimate League would do to help improve your game. How is this going to be an X factor in the next iteration of you as an ultimate player? Amy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this is just another opportunity to play ultimate, but with a little twist. I think that makes it really exciting. It's a new playing format, having those time quarters, different stall counts, being able to play with new teammates against new opponents. I think that's going to change the pace of the game and challenge me in new ways that I haven't faced before in club scene or local scene. So I'm really stoked for those moments where I'm going to be frustrated. And when we figure it out, it's going to be turned into those learning moments and help me grow as a better player.
What about you? How do you see the Western Ultimate League aiding you in your development as an ultimate player?
Yeah. I mean, I still feel like a pretty a new player, even though I have a few seasons under my belt playing more competitively now. I still always am just aware of how much I have to learn. And so I think for me, I love the good reps. That definitely resonates. I feel like I've played in leagues year round, even when I started playing on Molly Brown and Fury, I was playing Summer League while I was playing Fury. And so for me, that's always been, it's just like any reps I can get, I want to be out playing and remembering that it's fun to play in addition to the times when it's really, you're grinding and putting the work in. I need those reminders too of like really just the joy that you get from playing too. And I see playing in the league as an opportunity for that. And, like Seattle, the Bay Area just has such a depth of talent. And I was so excited about the opportunity to get to play with players from Nightlock and from mixed teams and all of these amazing players who did live in my city and who I hadn't had a chance to play with. And so not just the reps of getting to compete against other really great players from other cities, but also getting to learn with and practice with and get those opportunities to play with players in my area who I had never gotten to play with before. And so that's really exciting to me too.
Charlie, what about you? How do you see the Western Ultimate League as a benefit to you as you continue to grow and learn as an Ultimate player?
Yeah, I think to me, the Western Ultimate League, the parts that really excite me are just the accessibility of those high-level competitive reps, where in club you have to spend a lot of money, travel really far, spend the entire weekend, play way too many games. I like the good reps, but sometimes those tournaments I think are probably not, I'm ready to go play a tournament, but I won't be forever. And so the longevity and the accessibility of the Western Ultimate League is extremely valuable to me. And there are just so many incredible people to play against in Seattle to get those practice reps, and then in the West side of the country to play against, and then also just to be able to play games at home, I think is really special and unique. And I think also maybe highlights a different motivation to play in front of my family and my partner and my friends and folks who can't travel to a big tournament, spend the whole weekend, all that stuff for club. And so I think all of that stuff is important to me, and recognizing how it's maybe the next step onto my career in terms of what's next for me in Ultimate.
You all think about the breakthroughs that you've had in the sport. Obviously, there's no substitute for hard work, and hard work is a large part of why you are here. But there's also been lucky breaks and just meeting the right people. And so thinking about those moments where you might not have been in a program that had great coaches, or you might not have, been encouraged to go out to a particular tryout. I'm curious if and how you think the Western Ultimate League might be an X factor for future players who don't go to a college with a strong program, or maybe even people who aren't exposed to this sport. So I know there's a really broad picture. But when you reflect on your own story, I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts on how you think the Western Ultimate League might serve as an important developmental piece for players who we haven't even seen yet. Amy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, my ultimate story, I've been fortunate to have coaches and friends and the community to encourage me to be the player that I am today, and ultimately fall in love with the sport of Ultimate. And so I hope that, the Western Ultimate League, like this program we have today, the open side, we continue to connect and welcome new fans and future players and continue growing this community that we all love. I think hopefully one day that someone will fall in love with the sport as much as I love it.
What about you? Besides how much you're looking forward to playing in it, what do you think the Western Ultimate League can offer to the Ultimate community?
Yeah, I'm just so excited about the opportunity for more people to be able to see the game. When I think back to when I started playing in college, it was a long time before I ever saw what the game could look like when it was played at the highest level. And I think some of that's on me. Some of it was, it wasn't a priority for me. But also, I wonder sometimes if I had seen a game at club nationals when I was at that point, if I would have had that spark sooner to really decide that was something I wanted to set my mind to and really start on that development trajectory earlier. And so I love the idea that this will hopefully give more people the opportunity to see that and get excited about it and hopefully be able to catch that spark for themselves.
And Charlie, your thoughts on how the Western Ultimate League might serve as an X factor for some other future player out there?
Yeah, I think that, like Claire said, increasing the visibility could totally be an X factor for some kids out there. I also wonder what I would have done if I had started playing earlier, if it would have even been something I spent more time doing or not. And I also think that the like accessibility and the ease of access of like the competitions, and that the games aren't these tournaments that are far away, can maybe open up more opportunities to folks who can't travel as much or spend as much. You know, I can see myself participating in something like the WL at like an earlier age or maybe a later age. And I think also the opportunity to, I'm just thinking about how we have like camps and stuff. And so we have opportunities to grow our own communities within our cities and our own teams and programs by doing community outreach and getting some discs in kids' hands just out in our own communities too.
That's it for this episode of Open Side. A huge thank you to Breakmark for making this entire series possible. While we are eagerly awaiting a time where we can get together again safely, it has been lovely to have this opportunity to chat about Ultimate on this platform. So thank you, Breakmark. On behalf of my guests, Amy Lee, Claire McKeever, and Charlie Eide, as well as the entire Western Ultimate League production staff, I'm Megan Tormey saying thank you so much for joining us on the Open Side. Hopefully we will see you all in person soon.